So last summer, Germany started arguing with the EU over the all-EV mandate by 2035, saying something to the effect of, this is probably not the most pragmatic way forward. Well, you can imagine other EU member states, they got pissed off. But then fast forward to about 2 weeks ago, Italy joined the German cause, as well as some other EU member states that are now considered rogue. Well, why is this important to you and I? Well, it's going to mean more plug-in hybrids. Okay, so bring our discussion closer to home. What plug-in hybrid is this? Well, not to be Captain Obvious here, it's the new Prius. However, this one is the Prime. What does that mean to you and I? Well, it adds a 13.6 kilowatt-hour battery to the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. And that in turn raises the total system output to 220 horsepower, which is a pretty significant upgrade. One thing I do want to point out here, they changed the insulation underneath the hood. It's got a very unique artsy look to it. Anyway, we do need to get to the charging of that battery. It's a 3.5 kilowatt onboard charger. That means not particularly fast charge times. Basically, even on a 220 charger, it's 4 hours. Now, in terms of range, we have to remember that this is a plug-in hybrid with a small battery. So 44 miles with the 17-inch wheels, or equipped like this with the 19-inch wheels, 39 miles. Now let's put all of that aside and focus on what this is really about. Yeah, on one side of the Atlantic, it's more about being a tax cheat and getting around taxing schemes in different countries. Here it's about efficiency, and there it's pretty good, 53, 51, 52 combined, which is a market improvement over the Prius Prime that came before it, as well as a couple of ticks better than the hybrid version of this we drove a couple of months ago. Then we have to discuss performance figures, usually not the strong suit of a Prius. But believe it or not, they cut the 0 to 60 time on this thing by almost 4 seconds. 4 seconds. Like something along the lines of a regular standard BMW M car came off the 0 to 60 time to make this 6.6 seconds to 60. Now, it would stand to reason if one adds more complexity to the second propulsion system, like adding a plug, that could impact the weight. 3,571 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 1,620 kilograms. Now, as this relates to the most basic version of this plug-in with the smaller wheels, that's 110 pounds heavier. But as it relates to the regular hybrid without the plug, 231 pounds heavier with that. Oh, there is a noticeable difference. Now, admittedly, one would never confuse this with a sports car, but it is a noticeable difference, not only in acceleration from the original Prime version of this, but from the basic version of the hybrid we just drove that was unusually good in acceleration. Now, of course, there's the elephant in the room, and that is the sound this thing makes. And here's where we have to step back into the history of the Prius and understand why it sounds that way. It's the interaction of the engine, any engine, with the CVT. That's how it arrives at the efficiency. So that's why this one still sounds a certain way, even though it performs significantly different. Now, how does it perform different? I would argue this is much more usable around town. Or think about passing scenarios. That's where the extra power is going to come into play. So do you guys remember the Prius from a couple of generations ago? The one that had a 2-part roof. It had a glass, well, I wouldn't call it panoramic sunroof here, just a large glass opening. And then back here, it had solar panels. And the solar panel ran a fan inside the car to cool the interior. Neat party trick, but not really something that one would want to pay extra for other than the sunroof. This, they've taken out the sunroof and they've made the entire roof of this one, the XSE Platinum, a solar array. Now, what does the solar array do? Well, it really does two things. While the car is parked, like I'm talking to you, it's charging the battery. But while you and I have been driving, the solar array has been powering the accessories. Now this, it's a neat party trick. Yeah, I'd love to see it integrated with an opening sunroof, but it's not going to give you a full charge, not even close. Like you and I sitting here for a couple of hours, maybe this would open the window and potentially close it again. So in other words, this needs to be a huge solar array to get any real benefit out of it. Right now, it's just a neat party trick. So to understand ride quality, let's you and I go back to the weight differential between this and that Prius regular hybrid we drove on this same road just a couple of months ago. And here there really isn't a discernible difference, even with the 231 extra pounds in pushing it around corners. Not that people are going to do it, it's just now, I don't want to say it's composed, it's more composed than the Prius Prime that came before it. And here's where we get to a philosophical discussion. Toyota spent so much time to make this thing look good, make it attractive, and now accelerate in this one. Why not go the next level and at least work on the composure so one could use this on roads like this, and then when they get back into town like you and I are doing now, they can switch into their neighborhood and, let's say for the sake of discussion, one has to drive aggressively. Let's say for the sake of discussion, one wants a better ride quality. That's what the composure would do to a car like this, especially one that has the extra weight. 231 pounds is not a big deal when you're considering a plug-in hybrid system. Here, you're right on that edge, and my thinking is, by changing the composure, it would change who this car appeals to. As for everything else, there really is no discernible difference between this and the regular HEV Prius that we drove a couple of months ago. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the options game with today's contestant, a new Prius with a plug. This one, the Prius Prime, for a base price of $32,350. That is the most basic SE model, which brings us to an obvious question. How much was the Prius that's just the regular hybrid, no plug? That one was $27,450. Then there's a middle model, an XSE, which adds the 19-inch wheels. It adds a powered driver's seat, as well as a soft touch interior. Basically, there's no leather inside the car. Toyota calls it soft text. Put another way, it's vinyl. Or put yet another way, remember MB text like back in the day? That was nicer. Anyway, then we get to this model, which is the XSE Premium. That brings about the same stuff as the XSE. However, it adds a fixed glass sunroof, meaning a sunroof that does not open, a bigger screen, as well as heated and vented front seats. Then there's that solar roof we talked about. That is only on offer in the XSE Premium for an additional $610. Then the only other thing we pay extra for is the destination and handling from Japan, $1,095, which brings us to a total retail price of $40,875. Okay, let's try one of the biggest differences between this and the last Prius that we drove, and that is a full EV mode. There we go, riding on sunshine. In all the driving you and I have done thus far, I have kept it in hybrid mode, which I'm noticing is like a hold mode. I left the garage this morning with 32 miles of stated range, and now switching into EV, it's got 29, and I've driven probably about 40 miles. Okay, now that we understand all that, let's try the most important test, and that is foot to the floor. Does it go into hybrid mode? No. It stays in EV mode. Wow, that was a bit of a surprise. I fully expected this thing to revert back to hybrid mode. That aside, the thing that just slaps you across the face when you drive this, it's got the feeling of an electric car, meaning it doesn't feel like a Taycan, a BMW i4, anything like that. There's really no personality to the electric mode here. But as part of that, you don't feel this massive hulk going down the road. Because when you and I drive an EV, no matter what it is, they are 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 pounds. Here's an EV for 40 miles, that's 3,500 pounds. And this is kind of where EV should be targeting, because the feel is so much better. It's almost like the lack of the weight is the personality in the EV mode. So this is the point of the episode where I ask, what have we learned today? Apparently, I am the one that has learned something today by choosing this shoot location. As you can see, this is a stunning neighborhood just outside of San Diego behind me with this lovely veranda. What I didn't bargain in this equation was the sheer number of people that were out for strolls with their dogs, their significant others, and it was the couples that stopped and were taken by this. Yeah, it's the design, but most importantly, they all knew what it was. They were all excited about it and already figured out there's something different about this Prius. But then when they asked what's special about this one, that's where we get into a bit of a struggle. The HEV at $27,000 US, it's hard to say no to that one for the benefit of this one. And that's where we get to the wish list. Here, I think there needs to be more differentiation. Perhaps the GR Prius that I suggested to the chief engineer a couple of months ago, maybe that's what needs to happen, maybe half GR. Let's go back to what we said in the car. This is magnificent. Head and shoulders, not just above the previous Prius, but over most cars today. The only thing it's lacking in is some composure. But I am just one man, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all in word, MotoManTV all in word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you got value out of this episode, I would greatly appreciate you sharing it with all your friends on your socials. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später. And to the lovely neighbors who stopped and said hello, it was great to meet you.